Hello everybody. This is Julia, aka Mama Mo, and I have been blessed to talk to the Travis Knights today. So, if you're not familiar, let me just give you a little bit of information. So, Travis was born in Montreal, Canada, and he was first introduced to tap at the early age of 10 by the great Ethel Bruneau, who became his teacher. He has become an esteemed tap dancer with a list of accolades, including the 2020 recipient of the Jaqueline Lemieux Prize for Outstanding Contribution to Dance in Canada. He has traveled the world, showcasing his talent, creating new and innovative ways for the audience to appreciate tap. He is currently one of the 5 cast members of the show, The Secret Chord, the Leonard Cohen Experience, now playing at the Segal Center in Montreal. So thank you, Travis, for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah.
So I just want to ask you real quick, um, maybe you want to start from the beginning, just give us a little bit of information. How did tap grab you at such a young age?
Wow. So I was always interested in dance, like always, or to be even more specific, I was always a lover of music, and I
Okay.
responded to that love through dance, right? And I'm born in '83, which means when I'm growing up, the most prolific musician slash dancer was Michael Jackson. So I'm like on
Yep.
the couch, jumping up and down, twirling, doing all the things. But that was that was just having fun.
Yeah.
But then I saw Gregory Hines give a tribute to Sammy Davis Jr.
Wow.
Sammy, was terminally ill at the time, and like it felt like all of Hollywood came out to pay tribute to him, and you can watch the entire show on YouTube. I just did like
Nice.
maybe a month ago. I was like, what? But it was an incredible cadre of talent that if you're alive at a certain point, you all these people are very familiar. But even now, so of course Gregory Hines was on the gig, Stevie Wonder was on the gig, Eddie Murphy
Nice.
hosted the show, Michael Jackson paid tribute to Sammy Davis Jr. And the thing
Nice.
about time is people don't really remember. Time is really
Especially these last 5 years, no?
woo. So time. I was about to say brutal, but I think it's sobering. In terms
Mm,
of our self-importance and the legacy that we want to leave behind. Well, Sammy
yeah,
Davis Jr. was the biggest entertainer of his time, and you ask most people in the new generations who Sammy Davis Jr. was, they have no reference for understanding who that is.
crazy.
And
Yeah.
so Gregory Hines was paying tribute to Sammy Davis Jr. He came out, he said some beautiful words, and then he tap danced. Like he tap danced. We'll get to that, okay? And then they did something together. Like Sammy put on his shoes and walked up on stage, and it was like all the illness just went away completely.
Wow.
And they traded steps together. They had a little challenge on stage, and it ended with Gregory kissing his feet, and it was beautiful. And after that, I was like, "Yo, mom,
Yeah.
what is this now?" I think it's important to say this because when people say tap dance, a bunch of different people will have a bunch of different ideas about what that means,
Sure.
about what it is. Like I will watch somebody that's clearly doing Irish step dance, and a civilian would say, "Oh, look at the tap dancer." Mhm. So there's a difference between um, um, Irish step dance, Spanish flamenco, Afro-Peruvian zapateo, Indian katak, and American tap dance. It's just different. Now, within American tap dance, there's a lot of cultural differences as well because
Hmm.
on that, and for example, on that same show, on that same tribute, the lovely, multi-talented Tony Danza came out and tap danced as well.
Wow.
And he came out and said, "Listen, I I had a choreographer choreograph this on me, and I didn't know I had to follow Gregory Hines, and like, we're gonna do it." And he essentially asked the audience for forgiveness, and then did what he did. But what he did is what a lot of people consider to be tap dance, and they're right.
Okay.
There was a cultural difference between what Tony Danza did and what Gregory Hines did that comes
Hmm.
from this. jazz, improvisational, musically oriented place
Hmm.
versus um, I feel like choreographed show Broadway place. Now, the Gregory Hines is like a Broadway dancer. He's been in
Yeah.
several Broadway shows. So I don't even mean to paint Broadway with that large brush, but I do mean to introduce people to a difference between, you know, what is blanketed as tap dance and the very specific thing that interested me in
Hmm.
becoming a tap or learning how to tap dance.
That's amazing. And I know you had the privilege of working with them, right?
Like what? I don't
Yeah.
know about working with them, but oh yeah, I did. Yeah. My memory, my God. So yeah, I literally worked with him, but the first time I encountered him, like in person, was on stage at Place des Arts here in Montreal, and he was a generous performer and asked everybody with tap shoes to come out on stage, and I had tap shoes because my teacher
Nice.
Ethel said, "Never leave your home without your tap shoes." And yeah, he changed my life by introducing me to tap dance. He changed my life by, being a generous human being when I met him. You
Mm.
know how people say, don't meet your idols?
Mm.
Mm-mm. I feel sorry for the person that had to like say that the first time because that must have been a bad
Yes.
experience, but my experience was phenomenal.
The other question I had for you, because this is I think it's like a third round of this show, right? The Secret Chord. And I know
Hmm.
it originated in Toronto. The writers are from Toronto, Ontario. How did you kind of get into this genre? Because it's different, right? It's not your usual performance that you would do. And I have to say, I saw the show. I was blown away. I was blown away.
Hmm.
I mean, I knew of you, I knew your performances, but the way you took on some of those songs was just incredible. So tell me how you got into this.
Dig it. So, 1000% Mike Ross. Mike Ross, Mike Ross, Mike Ross. He's the former musical director at Soul Pepper. Soul
Hmm.
Pepper Theatre Company in Toronto. They uh, they spent years perfecting this idea that I'll describe as, concert meets documentary meets theater. They
Hmm.
spent years figuring out how to do that. And Mike Ross is as a musical director, he's like a unicorn because he's a musician, but he's
Yeah.
also well steeped in theater, and
Okay.
so just understands the interplay between the two. So the first
Nice.
time I did a show with Soul Pepper, I think it was like 2016, 2017. You can't trust me with dates. You can trust me with time. You can't trust me with dates. Okay. So I was there's another phenomenal tap dancer named Stephanie Cadman, and she like whispered in Mike Ross's ear, "Hey, Travis," because they were looking to do this segment about the
Nice.
birth of tap dance in their show. And so yeah, I was asked to come on board, and I did the little thing, and then Mike, we're going through the arrangement, and Mike looks at me and goes, "Do you sing? Do you sing?" And I said, "Good, no, no, of course
You
not."
said no.
He said, "No, no." And like emphatically with passion. Um, and Mike looked at me and said, "Yeah, you can." And he plunked down the notes, sang the song, and then he looked at me again and said, "I told you." And then we did the show, and then he invited me back for another show, and then he invited me back for another show, and then so I really I can't thank Mike Ross enough for helping me get out of my own way.
Hmm.
That's not
Yep.
that's not always a thing. Like, that's not always a thing.
Yeah.
People don't necessarily get that opportunity. When I meet people, there's this wonderful poet named Maya Angelou. She said,
Hmm.
"When someone tells you who they are, believe them."
For the first time. Yep.
Well, Mike Ross said, "I don't believe you," and I really owe some of the most joyous professional experiences of my life to that man. So one of these shows, Leonard Cohen, I think I was invited in on the third iteration of the show, I believe,
Okay.
think. And once again, I'm born in 1983. I'm listening to Michael Jackson and
Right.
Vogue. I'm in my TLC bag. That's who Leonard Cohen. Like I'm aware of the name, but I'm not hip.
Right.
And just like Simon and Garfunkel before in the show before, now I'm getting hip to Leonard Cohen. And I tell you, I think it was a year and a half ago that we put the show on,
Mm,
and uh, like the lyrics are just so profound and so
mm,
it's like a bullseye, a deadly assassin with his prose. It's amazing
yeah,
uh, to be a part of it. Now, the words meant something to me the first time we did it, and then a year and a half later, they mean something much different
sure.
now. And then a year and a half later in Montreal, at the Segal Center, in the hub of like this rich Jewish community,
Yep.
it's like it's there's a level of not just responsibility to represent Leonard Cohen. It really does feel like a privilege
Yeah.
to be specifically at the Segal Center, specifically at this time, with
Hmm.
specifically this audience, delivering this specific group of, well, I don't know, the group of, I'll say group of messages, the overall vibe, the tone. I really feel like there's healing to be had, there's
Yes.
questioning, there's interrogation to be had, there's challenges to be had, and there's community to be a part of. And I'm grateful for that.
I think you really explained that so well because being in that room
Mm,
with that audience for the opening, one of the first songs that you sang rang so true um, for everything that's going on right now,
mhm,
presently.
mhm,
And I just couldn't, like, I was brought to tears because I just was listening to these words and thinking, we are still dealing with all of these things. And
yeah.
he was able to explain them so eloquently in his poetry and in his song. And I am like you, I'm a 77 baby. So I was not, like I knew of him. I knew of his most famous songs, but I was
Mm,
not a super fan of Leonard
yeah.
Cohen. It was just wasn't my time. And I didn't really connect with his music, but I can tell you in that space,
Mm,
listening to the five of you and then the five of the orchestra, just
mm,
every everything coming together in a different way, in a very
mhm,
unique way. I was just like, oh, I get it. I
yeah,
get this now.
yes,
And to
mhm,
be able to hear it so differently. That was the other thing I wanted to ask you because you sang a song that was very specific, Leonard Cohen. When I say that, I mean most people, including myself, know that song.
mm,
Everybody knows. And you just gave it a different life. Like it was
mm,
just that song to me was always a low, dark
sure.
sounding song. Tell me how you brought it to a new life.
Yeah, so once again, shout out to Mike Ross and his arrangement of that song. But it's I feel like I'm still finding it. The
Mm,
one of the things for me is I was in preparing for this run, I listened and watched the old run, and
hmm.
oh, you're so young, Travis. Do you really know? Everybody knows. Do you know, Travis? And so I find myself listening to the words of the preamble. You felt like Humphrey Bogart, and you couldn't put anything over on him. There's a dancer that I work with, choreographer, phenomenal. Her name is Brandy Leary. Her
Hmm.
mentor said this about artists, about dancers in particular,
Mm.
um, that he's only interested in watching dancers over the age of 60 because now they have something to say, right?
Oh,
So I feel like I look forward to, first of all, I think the show can run, period. I think the show can run for many years. But
hmm.
I'm curious about what 50-year-old Travis would have to say about this song,
Mm.
or how he would perform the song. 60-year-old Travis, how, the kind
Yeah.
of the kind of wisdom that you just hear in the voice versus a person that's trying to sell you, like, get out of here. So the another thing that's another thing about being in essentially at home at the Segal Center for a month, show after show. I'm aging with the words with the work. I'm finding new things every night.
Mhm.
And so I'm glad you enjoyed it when you saw it, and I look forward to figuring out what it's going to be tonight and tomorrow. You know what I'm saying?
Nice. Yeah,
To
yeah.
really,
Well, I'll be coming back, so
yeah, yeah. Cool. You
I'm
know,
bringing my
like,
sons
oh, so
actually.
one thing. So that song opens with, okay, everybody knows the dice are loaded. Okay,
Hmm.
so that means the game is rigged. Everybody rolls with their fingers crossed. That means it's like that's a superstition. That's like, oh, you're like you want to try to cheat the system, or maybe you want to curry favor with the system. It's like
Mm.
it's like every one of those words means something, and I really enjoy. I'm getting really nerdy about this, but I really enjoy like digging more and more. It's a real privilege.
Beautiful. And you can tell within the show how it grows in itself. So, it's starting off slower and then by the end of it, the audience is just like they're on their feet. It was powerful. And I'm
Yeah.
sure you felt it too. I'm sure it's getting better every single time. I had for you is if you wanted to, because I know you have something happening right after you're performing.
Yeah.
I looked into it, man. This looks great. So if you would love to talk about it, it sounds amazing.
I love to. So directly after the Secret Chord, I'm going into the Mars Project through Dance in Montreal here at Théâtre Maisonneuve. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's my love child. It's super important to me. Of course, as with a lot of these things, born a long time ago, but really sparked during the pandemic.
Mhm.
Um, there was a lot of fractures in a lot of different communities. Certainly, like after the discovery of the mass grave in British Columbia at the
Mhm.
residential school, it's been difficult for me to go wave a flag and say Happy Canada Day. It's
Yep.
been like rough. Like, oh, is this
Hmm.
how we gonna?
Yeah.
And so the Mars Project, on a certain level, on one level, is asking a question. Well, how can we live together and maintain our respective cultures,
Hmm.
and by coming together, creating a new culture?
Yeah.
In the metaphor of Mars, it's how can we become Martian essentially by coming together? And so there's a tap. It's an international cast. Tap dancer coming from Japan, Australia, the United States, and
Uh,
Canada. All original music. It's fantastic. On a different level, on another level, whenever I ask people, hey, would you ever consider going to Mars? 99% of them, like reflexively, go, hell no. And it's not even like no, a polite no. It's a emphatic hell no.
mhm.
And so it, the question sparks for me is like, okay, well, what else in your life are you saying hell no to? What else in your life
Yeah.
are you not even willing to look at? You
Hmm.
know? And if you were to look at it, and then if you were to like go towards it, who would you be after that? So who would we be on the other side of the even the decision to go to Mars is what the Mars Project is about. On another level, we like a critical mass of us live in like major cities, which
Mm.
means there's a lot of looking down at the ground. I would love to remind people to look up at the stars, and if you have to drive 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes to like see like a
Hmm.
nice canopy, then you should do that because it's like I feel it's like a fundamental human experience that we don't have these days. On another level, I'm a tap dancer, so that means I love music, and so the musicians that we have on board, the original music that's created. There's a singer named Joanna Majoko, worth the price alone. Um, uh, a lot of levels to the show. It's a very contemporary show. There's a major character that I'm not going to talk about that is becoming a major character in our lives. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Uh-huh.
But I look forward to doing it. I hope people respond well to it. And just like with Leonard Cohen, at the beginning of this conversation, it changes every time we do it. You
Sure.
know, And so I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to do it. I'm grateful to Dance for inviting us out to share with my, I'm going to say it. I've lived here since 2008. I'm going to say it, inviting me out to my hometown
Nice.
on this thing. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And I'm gonna say, and I don't know if it's actually something that you thought about in these past few years preparing for this
Mm,
Mars project, but in my research, I was listening to an interview that you had done years back,
mm,
and you were talking about your children, and
mm.
you were saying how they will be the ones that will go to Mars. And I was like, oh my gosh, full circle. That was
Cool.
beautiful, you know?
Cool. I'm glad that, yeah.
That was
Yeah,
really wild.
I'm pretty
So,
consistent.
and then, yeah,
Yeah.
been on your mind for a while.
But
Um, and
because of who you are, and your angle, I do want to maybe just maybe we can't go into it for time's sake, but I think it's important, especially for artists, um, to talk about being a family, to talk about having a family.
exactly,
Um,
yeah.
I've been lucky enough to travel a lot, and when my kids were young, it wasn't as big a deal.
Hmm,
But a part of the push and pull of having the opportunity to travel essentially for 2 months, all of December and most of January. I
hmm.
live in Brampton, Ontario. My family's here. We're lucky that it's the holidays, so
Right.
bad parents. We took the kids out of school early, and we're just here in Montreal for a while. But it does affect the children, you know.
Sure.
And so for me, as a creator, as a producer, as a choreographer, as all the things, I am now writing it into my budget
Hmm.
uh, to figure out how to bring the family. And it's
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 so
not even
important. It's so
it's not
important.
just it's not as simple as just like money, because they have their lives in
Yes,
Brampton,
yeah.
they have their activities. So and I believe in the work that I'm doing. I believe in the life that I would like them to live. And so there's this balance between presenters and producers and artists, everybody on board, to become more family oriented in how we
Mhm.
design these shows. I feel when we were developing the Mars Project, I was feeling horrible. I asked Leona, who's the Japanese woman, who's a mother, Renee, mother, Thomas, he's going to be a father. He's going to be a father in like 3 months. But I asked them to leave their homes for 2 weeks to help create the show. That's a big deal for
Sure.
children and for parents. And so I don't know. I don't know like how to manage the discussion, but I just want to raise
Hmm.
how important it is to consider families. Also, some of the most prolific tap dancers that I know are mothers,
Hmm.
and it's still a sexist world. I'm thinking of one in particular that lives in France, who like the phone stopped ringing when she became a mother because people just assumed that she
Wow.
wasn't like down to work anymore. It's like whoa, whoa, whoa. There's a lot of levels to the conversation of
Sure.
being more of just like putting it in the budget and being more as if it's that easy during a recession or inflation. But just being more open and to acknowledging the fact that if you ignore an artist, it has an effect. If you ignore an artist's life, it has an effect on their local life or wherever you're taking them from. I just want to like put that out there.
No, I agree with you. And actually that was going to be one of my last questions is as a father,
Hmm,
performing, you're in the arts. I'm sure that your children have been able to experience things differently and see the arts differently versus some of their friends and their other
yeah.
family members. I would be curious to know how you manage that. How are they seeing, their education versus
Hmm,
the arts and, combining them both? Because I think as a parent, I specifically think the arts is ridiculously important and I encourage it for my kids in all different forms. So how do you approach that as a dad?
very clumsily. Just like wow, I feel like I wear my intentions on my sleeve, but it's super duper clumsy. My daughter, my firstborn, hugged me so long, and I like to communicate to me that like, Dad, this is like we got to figure this out. This is not a thing. You've been away too long, and that was after not seeing her in person for 15 days, and so it was a big deal. But what's important to me, what that experience helped me with is okay, we have to engage in many, 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 many ongoing conversations about what it is that I do. Because
Hmm.
if you think I'm just going out on stage and tapping or shuffling,
Yeah, playing.
that is not, I get to um, create be a part of creating spaces that
Hmm.
welcomes in community that essentially is can be like an hour and a half long meditation on the work of Leonard Cohen
Yeah,
in this particular context. Mars Project, we just talked about what that is, what that means to me. Um, um, uh, uh, I was able to take my entire family. We didn't make any money, but I was able to take my entire family to India for several weeks to perform.
wow,
And, it provides us with opportunities to see the world from a different point of view. When my daughters see what's going on stage, they know exactly what happens behind the stage in order to make that magic work. They
that's
watch
great.
films differently. They make things different. It's like the education is singular. Also, the best. I'll talk about tap dancers, but I'm sure it's the case with a lot of different artistic realms. The
Mhm.
best tap dancers ever aren't first generation tap dancers.
Oh,
Their parents were tap dancers, or their parents were in the arts, or
okay.
something like that. There's an introduction into it. Maybe I'm biased, but my daughters can shuffle like, yeah.
Nice.
When I was their
I
age, I
love
was
it.
it's amazing. So I say that to say that it's very clumsy, but I do have a dream of kind of perfecting the model. There's a rapper, his name is Toby Nwigwe, who Nigerian ancestry, but he is like born and raised in I think it's Houston, Texas.
Okay.
He famously travels with his entire family, and they're growing. He's got
Yeah.
like 4 or 5 kids. He has a lyric to one of his songs where he says, um, "If you invite me for a show and I can't bring my wife and my kids, I'm leaving." It's just like it's let's go.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's not necessarily the case that he can afford that because he's made it, he's crossed the threshold. I think it's just um, I think
Priority.
it's more a priority, a commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot to figure out. I'm clumsy, but you know what I want. I think it's cool.
Yeah. Listen, I'm the same. I'm very, very grateful for the opportunities I've had in my little business to
Mhm.
take my kids to see performances like yourself. So I cannot wait to take them all. I think they're going to be blown away like I
So
was. And I'm encouraging everybody that I see. Like I'm just like I'm bringing this around with me. Like go see this now. So
woo!
congratulations.
Yeah,
I'm
thank you very much.
so privileged to have been able to speak with you and see you so intimately in that kind of a show. It was
Mhm.
beautiful, and I very much look forward to the Mars Project as well. So
Thank you. Yeah, come through. Tickets are on
thank
sale.
you.
And between Andrew and Evan and Emily Schultz and Divine
Yes.
Brown,
Oh,
good googly moogly. I
so
promise.
good.
I promise you can enjoy it.
I've looked them all up, and I'm just like I'm absorbing everything that you guys do. It's fantastic. Just
Mhm.
a wonderful cast. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And congratulations on everything that you do for all of us. We're loving it all. So keep going.
Yes. More to come. More to come.
All
All
right.
right.